This podcast is sponsored by Magic Rock Brewing. Currently, you can get free delivery on all orders over £40 and 10% of all online orders by using our code of TakesThatChance10.
Christopher Schindler has a chance to write his name in Huddersfield Town legend. And he takes that chance! Down the left and Moy stayed onside. Here's Mounier. 2-0 Huddersfield Town on the opening day of the Premier League. 1-2 wicket from the. Here's Moy right-footed. 1-0 Huddersfield Town. Lindelof misses his header. De Quattro's in. Round De Gea. 2-0 Huddersfield Town. 2-0 Huddersfield Town. Here's Zanka to turn it into the pass. Yes! And Cummins scored! Cummins has scored one of the most important goals of Huddersfield Town's history. De Quattro's forward. De Quattro's got the better. Yes! And Laurent De Quattro scores! Laurent De Quattro scores!
Welcome to Andy Takes That Chance, the warm-up. What is the warm-up? Well, I'm glad that you've asked. The warm-up is a new shorter episode intended to look at the forthcoming fixtures in a little more depth. So instead of bolting the match previews onto the end of a long main podcast episode, we'll be releasing a second bite-sized episode a couple of days before the game, looking forward to the upcoming match. We'll have stats, features, and opposition opinion, as well as creating a new prediction league for you to get involved. And, hopefully, for you, put us in our place. And as they say, who can top the Wops? I'm your host, Matt Shaw, and joining me today to look ahead and preview the Stoke City game is our regular website content previewer, Brady Frost. And when Brady and I were concocting this episode, we decided that we needed an analyst. So we went straight down to St. George's Park, up to the highest office, and brought in Chris Markham. So welcome to both of you.
Thanks, mate.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Matt.
No worries, it's your idea, Brady. It's all good. It's all good. Right, gentlemen, let's look at Stoke City. So historically, not a fantastic place for us to go and pick up wins. In 40 visits, we've had 7 wins, 14 draws and 19 defeats in League and Cup. So last season, we went there and won 1-0 in a very drab yet wonderful victory, which kick-started our revival under Danny Cowley and an excellent goal from Juninho Bacuna.
O'Brien picks it up. Off a miscontrol by Njayi. It falls to Bacuna, who releases Diakabi down the right, and suddenly Town are building a chance. Here's Bacuna arriving. Bacuna smashes it into the back of the net. Return pass by Diakabi. Juninho Bacuna's broken his duck for the season. Shortly after coming on as a sub. Oh boy, did he take his chance.
Okay, so one standout and memorable trip, guys, was back in 1991. So you may or may not remember this one. I think we're all, Brady might not even have been around then. But we went there in 1991. It's a good, you could say good season, but it didn't end particularly well. But we went there and won 2-0 with 2 goals from Town legend Ewan Roberts, which was our first win back at the Victoria ground at that time for 41 years. That season, Town finished 3rd in the league, but sadly lost to Peterborough in the playoffs. Those scenes at Leeds Road will live long with everybody that was there. And Stoke finished 4th, losing to Stockport, and Peterborough then went on to beat Stockport in the final at Wembley. So if you're watching this on YouTube, here are the goals from that game.
It was 40 years ago that Huddersfield last won at Stoke, so perhaps Owen Handside didn't expect too much at the Victoria ground. Fortunately, though, they had the striker bang in form. Ewan Roberts reacting quickly to steer in the first, with goalkeeper Kearton apparently tying his bootlaces. 3 minutes later, a Chris Marsden free kick. Roberts slipped his marker to make it 2-0. This marquee on a ground where they hadn't seen a home defeat all season. Just one blot for a Town side that had lost its last 2 games. When Mick Kennedy sent Wayne Biggins streaking towards the Town goal, Peter Jackson tugged at the shirt. And we all know what happens next in those circumstances these days. There's the evidence, and a few seconds later, for Jackson, there was the red card. But his team still went on to win. Stoke City 0, Huddersfield Town 2.
So let's focus on Stoke particular then. Brady, how are Stoke getting on this season?
So I had a quick look. So I know it's an early stage of the season. We're only 11 games in, but they're 8th from the table. They've won three of their last 5. They're sitting on 18 points. So we just won 4 points ahead of us and just 1 point away from the playoffs. So I kind of wanted to look into it. So far they've won 5 games, drawn 3, lost 3, scored 15 goals and conceded 12. So not too sparkling, but I just wanted to look into some of the games because obviously we're playing them on Saturday, and just to get a little bit of insight of what we might be up against. And what's interesting is they're not really a possession team, and obviously we've struggled with that. Obviously, you think of the away game to Birmingham, for example. So their last 2 games have been away. They won 3-0 against the league leaders, Reading. That was just 31% possession for them. 3 shots on target, 3 goals. Again, played away to Watford, lost 3-2, but 34% possession, 3 shots on target, 2 goals. So what's quite interesting is certainly away for the least, when they're taking shots, they're not actually creating that much, but they're scoring from the few chances they make. And then just looking at their home games, so 3 home games from the last 6. Rotherham, they won 1-0. That was, again, quite low possession, 45%, 3 shots on target and just scored the 1. Brentford won 3-2, 32% possession, 4 shots on target. So the Brentford one's quite interesting for me because, again, as we've kind of touched on, under Corberan, we do like to dominate possession, and this seems to suit Stoke quite well, really. And again, not having a lot of shots in any of the games really from the last 6. So a bit of a concerning one, really. I know we've had the international break, and that can always throw up a couple of surprises. But this is quite difficult. I think this is exactly the kind of team Huddersfield don't really want to play against and struggle against.
So let's look at Stoke. So possession stats, Chris, tend not to mean an awful lot. You know, the way they calculate these possession stats are usually based on the amount of passes between, rather than, the amount of time that you actually hold on to the ball. So, if a goalkeeper and centre-backs just go tap, 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 all of a sudden your possession rate goes through the roof, doesn't it? So it doesn't always tell a full story, obviously, as what Brady said there. So Stoke are obviously a side that don't mess around at the back, to quote, the gentleman that sits behind me at games. Hopefully I'll see him again one day soon. But looking at the strengths and weaknesses of Stoke to me look dangerous in wide areas, and they possess what looks to be a physical team across the field, particularly midfield as well, where they've got the likes of Klukas, James Mclean, Tyrese Campbell, and a couple of other options as well that they've got in there. They play what looks to be a 4-4-2 or maybe a 4-4-1-1 with Powell slightly withdrawn from the front. Can Town exploit the space if Stoke, move forward in possession? How would you, Chris, look at how the strengths and weaknesses of Stoke, how they may attack us, and what do we need to look out for?
Yeah, I think, like you said, I don't think they'll dominate possession. Speaking from exactly what Brady said there, but also knowing what we know about us this season, we actually have more possession in away games than any team in the league this year, nearly 60%, which obviously for an away team is ridiculous. So I don't think they'll dominate, and I think that'll suit them. It won't maybe suit us as much, but it'll suit them. When I look at Stoke, I think of them more as like a team that'll grind you down. Looking at a lot of the goals scored, playing longer passes from winning second balls. I think our centre-backs, whether we play 2 or 3, maybe to discuss, but I think they'll be under pressure a lot. They've got Fletcher, Campbell, there'll be crosses in the box, Mclean. And I think it's maybe trying to force us into mistakes and errors and being able to have good players around the box when you do make errors and pick up on them second balls. So I think it's going to be, I think there'll be a lot of play, like I said, direct and for second balls, and the centre-backs for us, if we come away with a good result, it'll be one of them games where you look back and say the centre-backs were outstanding, I think. And in indication of that, we all know Tommy Smith. He's played more accurate long passes than any right back this season in the league, and they do have willing runners down that right side as well. So obviously you've got Stephen Fletcher, who runs in behind, down in, maybe not as quick as he used to be, certainly not, but still a willing runner. And obviously Tyrese Campbell, who's someone who is very quick with good strength as well. So they will have willing runners down that side, and I think that they aren't going to waste any time, like you say, messing around at the back or playing at the back. I think it'll be a bit more direct, and we'll have to defend well when we don't have the ball, and deal with those second balls and the quality they've got around the box.
So we're looking at sort of players that may affect the game, from Stoke's point of view, and players that we'll need to look out for, and we've picked out a couple. Tommy Smith in particular mentioned there, Chris. Tyrese Campbell as well. This is the son of Kevin Campbell, who used to play for Arsenal, Everton, amongst other clubs. He's just really started to show his quality this season. He's only 20 years old. Last year, I think he was a bit in and out, and they were a bit unsure about him, but he's played 10 games this season, 3 goals and 5 assists. He can play up front or wide on the right. He's a very dangerous player, but he's up against our best player this season, Harry Toffolo, and that should really be an interesting duel to watch, providing that we play a back four. It'll be a lot more of a one-on-one duel that you would think. But Nick Powell, it seems to be, the former crewman seems to be a player which is causing defences a few headaches, Chris.
Yeah, he's obviously a clever player, and he likes to drop and find space. He's not your typical centre forward, so maybe that number 10 role or being slightly withdrawn from the front suits him. And he's one of those players, like I said, if you get to see and go back and look at his goals this season, they're just really good finishers from in and around the box, from second phase, from cutbacks, and that's where you don't want him to be. Obviously in and around your box with time to shoot, because he has got quality. I think just to quickly go on your point there around Toffolo versus Tyrese Campbell, if he does play there, I think it's an interesting one, because another thing that I've noticed when you look at some of the high level data is that we have the highest percent of our attacks come down our left side. So 44% of our attacks come down the left, which obviously makes sense. We spoke about before with Toffolo. Be interesting to see what happens and how advanced, if we keep him so advanced as he normally is in this system. Those will be the interesting ones when we do turn it over. That's precisely why they'll maybe be happy with us coming on, getting Toffolo and whoever plays right back out of position and look to exploit those spaces. So I completely agree. While Powell's dangerous, I think you take away a lot of what Powell gets if you keep essentially Campbell and Fletcher from making it difficult for the back four.
We're looking at sort of strengths and weaknesses of Town as well. So in the press conference today, it looks like Pieper's going to be missing. He's been an incredible signing, really, this season. Him and Toffolo look like one of the best fullback combinations certainly we've had for probably since Lerver and Smith themselves. A really good combination, but it looks like he will be missing. So maybe D'Amico Dehaney may come in, or we may see a bit of a formation switch. So when we look at the strengths and weaknesses of Huddersfield in comparison to Stoke, when I look at how we might combat Stoke, we talk about possession, and like we say, possession's not the be-all and end-all, but there is, statistically, teams that do dictate possession tend to win more games than those that don't, which is something that you don't always see backed up. So for me, it looks like a potential switch to 3 at the back will happen. Schindler, Stearman and Sarr will probably come in and be those 3, and that gives you a slightly better, a much better platform aerially than what you would do with a back 4, and that could negate or help negate the likes of Fletcher and crowd out those second balls in and around the box as well. That's potentially what I would see. And you look at the back 4 at Stoke as well. You look at Danny Bath and Smith. Smith's decent. We know what Smith's about. Morgan Fox and Harry Suter that they've got at the back, and it doesn't scream out pace. So what I would imagine is that if they become advanced and we can draw them out, then what we'll do is we'll look for a couple of quick transitions and then in behind and trying to get the likes of Karoma and Benza in and behind. And I imagine that that's how the game will go, and Town will try and pick their moments, and then all of a sudden when they've drawn people out, then that's how we'll get behind. I'm just wondering how you guys see the game potentially going. Obviously, it hasn't kicked off yet, so we don't know, but in theory, how do you see that going?
Well, I think kind of touched on what Chris says. I think it'll be about Stoke grinding us down. They know our game. They know, obviously we hate to compare ourselves to Leeds, but they've played Leeds a couple of times and they've been, sometimes they've done well, sometimes they've not done so well. So I think Stoke's tactic, if they can't go ahead early, again, is to kind of wear us down and I think one player for me is Jacob Brown, so who they signed from Barnsley. So I was chatting to Ben from the YYY Files, which we'll hear a little bit later, but he's been coming off the bench and his pace has been causing a real issue for tiring defences. So he got the third actually against in added time against Reading. He's a great player. He's one I wish Town had got actually. And
Halifax lad.
So I'm a bit worried about, again, especially now with the rule about 5 subs. I think we know the kind of difference in Stoke's finances compared to ours. I mean, they're basically bankrolled by a betting company. So I think this is a game where I think their bench could make a difference, and I think we need to be ahead really, approaching the last 20 if we're going to get anything out of it.
A couple of extra people you could have on the bench as well, Chris, isn't there? With the 5 subs now, and you can have an extra couple, and like Brady says, that really gives the clubs with the bigger squads a bit of an advantage. But it could also see an advantage for Town in terms of unknown quantities. We've seen Kieran Phillips, who's now 10-6. Danny Ward's just come back, so there are a couple of wildcards that Town have got, and Janino Bakun is the ultimate wildcard, isn't he, if he's on the bench? So there's a couple of different things that we could employ as well.
Yeah, for definite. I think we're starting to see the squad getting a bit stronger. Like I say, Ward coming back will definitely help with his versatility and give us options at the top end. I think in terms of the grinding down, I agree. I think obviously with us having so much possession, as you're saying, sometimes that can be a good thing. And I think an important part of why we have possession, and I think it was the same when with David, was it's not so much always, and obviously the fans that always want to hear this, about the attacking intent. It's about the control of the game. So if you've got the ball, and even if it's sometimes looks and feels and is a bit mundane, a bit in the middle of the field, a bit in our own third, a bit in the midfield, and you don't feel like the ball's getting forward quickly enough, what you're doing is taking control and taking the sting out of the game, especially when you're playing against a team who is direct, who has good quality around the box. You want the ball away from your box with them on it as much as possible. So I think, that's going to be an important part around how we do it. So that will be another reason for us to have possession.
Do you think, to jump in a little bit there, would you say that's where someone like Carol Eiting maybe should come in and play the game?
Potentially, yeah. It is going to be another one where we're going to have to try and break down this mid-lower block, I'm imagining. So, you want someone in there who can do that. Obviously, although they've got a strong midfield physically, you look at John Obi Mikel, who is playing, and I'd hazard a guess as to say he's not as mobile. He was never really known for his mobility. He's more his positional play. Obviously a very strong guy, but maybe not mobile. It'd be interesting to see how we can use the energy of maybe O'Brien, Hogg, Eiting to maybe get round them and outnumber them in the middle. Like you say, I can't imagine Nick Powell dropping in to make a midfield 3 too many times when we've got the ball. So yeah, that potentially could be one. I think we spoke before this, Brady. Did you say that they've got goalkeeper problems?
Yeah, so I think it just kind of came out today, but Adam Davis, who was their first choice keeper at the start of the season, he's been out injured, so they brought in Angus Gunn. He's just suffered an ankle injury and is apparently out for 6 weeks. So they've recalled this young lad called Joe Bursic back from Doncaster. So again, maybe this is the old-fashioned football fan in me, but if they've got a young goalkeeper in there, I know that's not really our style, but I think we need to test him. He'll be a bit nervous. It's he wasn't expected to play, and I think we need to, like I say, test him early and catch him off guard. Really,
I think that's the thing. Where I think this is where the key will be. We're going to have a lot of the ball, as I said. We have more possession away than any team. However, we have the lowest in the opposition's final third, and coupled with this, there's only one team away from home who has a lower percentage of their shots inside the box. So typically we're having more shots from distance. We can't even get into the box when we get in the final third. And when you're playing someone, with a keeper who's struggling, with centre-backs who I think are prone to making mistakes, when I look at them, they are good structurally. They have some good shape behind the ball, which O'Neill was known for, obviously, in his time at Northern Ireland as well. Took them really far in the Euros for where they probably should have got. So I think if we're trying to exploit their weaknesses, it probably comes back to your point, Matt. I think we've got to, it'll be key how many times we get the ball in around their centre backs, how many times we're on the ball in the final third, and how many times we manage to get that ball in the box and take shots from good areas. And I think that is ultimately, if we can do that, it's the same as any game, but I think even more importantly against a game against the team, where they are going to be happy for us to have that ball, and their game plan will be to hit us on the break.
Yeah, chance creation is not Town's strong suit, really. I think 2 shots on target the last couple of games is all we've mustered. But as Brady said, that seems to be all Stoke do, but they take their chances. So key players for us, I think, Chris, what you mentioned before would be good if we all mentioned somebody who we all thought would be a key player for us. Brady, I'll shoot to you first, but who are you looking at to make the difference in this game, in your opinion?
I hope I've not taken anyone's, but I think this could be a good game for Eiting. I think, obviously great header for him last time out, but him being comfortable on the ball, I think will be really key for this game. And I think what's really important, especially if he's playing as that 6 and kind of a bit further back, is picking those balls at the right time. Again, I'm sure we're going to talk about what kind of formation we think Town will line up in, but we do actually have some pacey players. We've got Mbenza and Karoma. And again, we've talked about the kind of slow defence. I think he'll be a really key player. And again, I've seen some people comparing to Aaron Moy. I can see some stuff in there. I think it's a bit early days and they are different players, but I think him keeping the game ticking, it's about making those, it's obvious to say, but just keeping the game flowing, progressing forward and making those passes at the right time and making the smart choice. And I think he could be really key for Town to get something out of this game.
Aaron Moy, the master of the game management you were talking about earlier, Chris. So,
Yeah,
your key man. We've probably not got enough time to talk about Aaron Moy because I'll be here all night.
Me, obviously, I've mentioned Toffolo already in his battle, both obviously being key for going forward and with us attacking a lot down the left, but also trying to defend against Campbell. I think that's probably an obvious one, and I think he's been talked about on this pod probably a lot. The other one that I'm going to go for is someone I also a bit mentioned earlier, is the centre-backs. I think our centre-backs are going to have to be man of the match if we're going to get a positive result. So whether he goes Stearman or I'll go Shindy. If Shindy has a strong game against Fletcher, and we manage to keep the ball away from our dangerous areas, not allow them to grind us down with the second balls, I think it's going to be one of them away games where we're going to rely on our centre-backs at times to deal with that direct play and keep the ball away from our box. So I'll go Shindy.
I just hope that Schindler doesn't remember the last time someone played a direct diagonal box to Fletcher. Because going back to the playoffs where he scored, didn't he? And Schindler kind of got a little bit under it. But so I'm going to go to the attack, and I'm going to say this man might not even play actually when I come to talking about the team. But I think Fraser Campbell's link up will be incredibly key. I think in terms of transitions, if Stoke are slower at the back than what we are, I think the key really is to draw them out and then to get round the back. I'm going John Barnes. I'm 2 seconds away from the wrap here. But essentially what we've got to do is we've got to get Mbenza, Karoma, those kind of players in and around for us to create chances in my book. And you look at some key passes Fraser Campbell's made this season. Bristol City to get Mbenza in for the Karoma goal. At Millwall as well, I think it was the third goal, possibly where, he's made an incredible touch, to lay it off on the halfway line. And I think Fraser Campbell's savvy and his link-up play will be key to us creating chances. And, it's very unusual that a centre-forward doesn't, maybe not so unusual now in the sort of more modern game, but he doesn't get a lot of chances coming to him. But he's very much the player before the assist, if you like. He's Fraser Campbell, and I think he will be an important cog in this, whether he comes off the bench or whether he starts. But speaking of importance, that's a terrible link, but I'm going to go with it. Earlier this week, Brady, you chatted to Stoke fan Ben Rowley from the YYY Files, and here's what Ben had to say on the game.
And we're recording. So I'm now joined on the line by Ben from the YYY Files, which is a Stoke podcast. Ben, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm good. I was just saying, considering that we're in lockdown, I think I'm as good as I possibly could be at the moment. So yeah, how are you?
I'm good. Yeah, I'm sure you're in a good place because you sat here talking to me. So
As always.
So we'll jump into it. Obviously, the international break's pretty much over with now, and our teams are playing each other. So Huddersfield Town, Stoke. So first question to you is, what kind of game are you expecting between the two sides on Saturday?
Possibly a more refreshed one than what we've been used to, because obviously international break has given us, for most of the players anyway, a 2-week break from games after playing Saturday, Wednesday, or Sunday, Tuesday, whatever. It's been a tough fixture schedule. Some of the Stoke players seem to have not benefited from the international break. In fact, I know one of them has definitely not benefited from the international break. But I'm expecting perhaps teams to come back a little bit more refreshed than what we were seeing just before. But in terms of us, I'm expecting us to be good again. In short, we have been good for quite a while now, since Michael O'Neill come in fact, and I don't see that changing.
Was this where you talk about Michael O'Neill? Was this a surprise? Because obviously, similar to us last season, you didn't do so great when people expected you to do a lot better. So, what has Michael O'Neill's transformation been? Because from the outside, it seems like such a dramatic one.
Yeah, and it has been, because we've had 4 managers since Mark Hughes. So himself, Paul Lambert, Gary Rowett, and then Nathan Jones. All they promised certain things at Stoke. Mark Hughes was doing so for a while and then dropped off. And then the rest of them said a lot and said they were going to do a certain amount of things, and they never did. Michael O'Neill's been the first manager to have come in and done what he said he was going to do, which is give the fans a team to be proud of. In a sense that before we were, I don't want to say lazy, but we were thoughtless in our play. You could tell that there was tension between the players themselves and between the manager or the club or the fans. Before lockdown, we were all brought together, I think, as a club under Michael O'Neill. He's got the players playing, I don't want to say basic football. I don't want to say hoopball. I want to say direct football, because it's so different to what Tony Pulis is, and the fact that he gets the ball up the pitch, but that's not in a Swansea way or in a Tony Pulis style way. It's right. What's your out ball? Is it along the floor? Is it using the back four? Or is it just getting it out? Whatever way it is, he gets the ball up the field. And we're attacking with pace for the first time since probably 2014, to be honest. And it's really exciting to see at the moment. He has given the players confidence, which they should have, because they are all, most of them anyway, terrific footballers, some even Premier League quality. And they've not been confident since probably 4 years ago. And since Michael O'Neill came in a year ago, their confidence has been growing, and it's perhaps now at the stage where it possibly should be.
And I think what you kind of touched on in our match preview, which obviously you did for us as well, double points for you this week. You mentioned centre-back Harry Suter, who's a young lad. I'm sure many Huddersfield fans might not be aware of him. So can you tell us a little bit more about him? And you mentioned some of the other players Stoke who have been playing well for Stoke this season. Can you just tell us a little bit more?
Yeah. So Harry Suter, he is a 21-year-old, I believe Scottish-born, but plays for Australia national team, centre-back. And he was on loan at Fleetwood last season. They wanted to keep him. And I think we said, nah, we're going to use him this season. And he has been so good at the back for such a young guy. He's benefited from having some older guys next to him, like James Chester, Danny Bart as well. But the first thing I said about him is he is a big boy. He's 6'7", I believe. Huge. You don't miss him on the pitch. You'll notice as soon as you see him, as long as he plays, of course. But being so large, you wouldn't expect him to be as athletic as he is. Of course, he's a young lad, but he moves across the pitch rather quickly. He will win headers, but he's also quite intelligent. His tackling is good. His distribution from the back is reasonably good for, a young centre-back. He's what we've been needing, because we've been having players like Ryan Shawcross, James Chester, Danny Bart, Bruno Martins-Indi, good centre-backs, good tough tackling centre-backs maybe, but all ageing. Danny Bart in particular is very slow, for example. James Chester not played a lot of football in a while. Harry Suter's come in and has done the opposite, and he's been the yin to the yang for a lot of our centre-backs. he's been fantastic. You mentioned a couple of others. Tyrese Campbell. If I said Harry Suter's a big boy, Tyrese Campbell is a naughty boy. He is very, very good up front. Very, very good. Very confident. Very quick. Doesn't mind shooting from anywhere pretty much, but not in a stupid sense like Charlie Adam used to. He's a good player. Very, very good player. And I expect both of them to be in talks for a Premier League move at some point, which is sad for me to say, but I can't see how those two in particular are going to stay at Stoke for too long unless we progress with them.
Yeah, no, we've seen some of the performances of Tyrese Campbell. I mean, I think Huddersfield would be lucky to have a striker like that at the moment.
Maybe not Fraser Campbell.
Well, Fraser's done all right this season. We've been his critic before, but you've got to give him his dues. I mean, everyone talks about the volley against Forest, so there you go. We're talking of town players. There's a former one who's been playing a lot for you this season, which is a former fan favourite for us, Tommy Smith. Again, some of us haven't really checked in with how he's been doing at Stoke, but he seems to be playing a bit more this season. How's he been getting on, and what do the Stoke fans think of him?
Right back's been a troublesome position for us for a while. We were playing Mam Diouf there in the Premier League, which was funny. And then we were playing, what's his name? He used to play for Everton. Cuco Martina. Just bad all over. Don't know what he's doing these days. Then we were sort of brought back to life with Tom Edwards at right back, young local lad who sort of progressed through his team. He's done very well, but we brought in Tommy Smith, and he is that solid right back that we need for this system. We've been playing a 3 at the back for most games. For the last couple of games, we've been playing 4 at the back, but for the most part, we've been playing back 3 or 5, whatever you want to call it. And Smith has been on the right wing back role. I don't know what he was like for you. I believe at some point he was captain for you. You can tell in a sense. But his crossing has been magnificent, I think. It goes underrated at Stoke, but I think his crossing genuinely is excellent. His interceptions as well. I've not seen a fullback intercept a ball like Tommy Smith. He's excellent at it. Where he struggles is if Stoke are back to the wall and we're pinned back as a team, he's liable to making a few mistakes. As I say, he likes interceptions. Perhaps he's a little bit too keen on that front. And he's last season, I remember against Leeds, we were doing so well. We were 0-0 for such a long time. And he gave away a penalty needlessly. And that's just part of his nature. I think he's more aggressive. But he's been good. There's a reason why Edwards, who was our right back for last season, is now out on loan. He's a good player, Smith. And yes, right backs go sort of underrated in a team anyway, I feel, apart from if you Trent Alexander-Arnold. But he's good. He's not someone I'm looking to replace. Certainly someone that he needs backup for, because he's the only right back we have at the club at the moment that's actually playing. He's good. I don't know if you guys think that you're missing him or not, but I think he's been excellent for Stoke since he's come in, to be honest.
Yeah, well, I think, to be honest with you, we were missing him for a while, but we've got a new right back who we signed from Espanyol called Pipa, who's been doing really well, actually. And we needed a step over the other time. I'm trying to remember last time a Huddersfield player did that. So just talking about the game, what do you kind of see the key battles being? I think I kind of asked you about your weaknesses. You mentioned a bit of clumsy defending, but I suppose you're very good attacking and been scoring a few goals. So what do you see the key battles being?
And that's really weird when you say that, because Stoke haven't scored a hatful of goals. They've scored a decent amount of goals in their games, but our clean sheet record has been magnificent. This whole 2020, I can't think of the number we've kept. It's a lot. This season we've also kept, I think, the highest in England or thereabouts. It's a lot of clean sheets we've been keeping. That's partially due to defence. I mentioned players like Suter. Nathan Collins is another young centre-back who's been doing very well for us. But again, the problem we've been having is we've been chopping and changing our back line. We had Adam Davis in goal, for example, at the start of the season. He's now injured and won't be fit for the game against you guys, I believe. So it'll be Angus Gunn in goal, who's new. And even though a good goalkeeper, we've been chopping and changing centre-backs as well, as I say. Danny Bart, James Chester, Nathan Collins, Harry Suter, they've all been in the team. Bruno Martins Indy. Morgan Fox is a left back, and he's been playing as part of the back three at times as well. It's just unsettled, and you can tell sometimes. And I think O'Neill is still trying to find, to some extent, the blend that I was talking about before of really tough tackling and experience, and a bit of mobility, a bit of youth. And he's taking it game by game basis as well. O'Neill is the tinker man. He very rarely keeps the same team. What am I expecting? Goals, I think. I don't know who for, but I'm expecting goals from this one. I'm confident that it will be for Stoke. I'm confident that we're going to do well. Because, like I say, we've been in good form. Maybe our performances haven't reflected the results sometimes, but then it's vice versa. I think we are a good footballing side at the moment. We've got some injuries as well, and some absentees. James Mclean was the one I was alluding to earlier, he's caught coronavirus on international duty, so he'll be missing the next 2 weeks. He won't be part of the game. Maybe that's a chance for someone like Tom Ince to come back into the team. I know that you guys had him. Maybe it's a chance for Thibaut Verlinden to come back into the team. He had an ACL injury. He's a young lad, by the way, plays on the wing in the youth team. He's excellent, but he had an ACL injury last season. Might be the chance for him to come back into the team now he's recovered, make his first start since March. But we're good. We're really bloody good. And I expect us to be all right.
Well, yeah, you mentioned good football. I think, again, we weren't, from Huddersfield perspective, we weren't expecting much this season, but we've been playing some nice stuff. Again, I expect this varies with everyone I ask, but what have you made of Huddersfield so far this season? And again, I know we're not always a team that people focus on that much, but from what you've seen, what are your thoughts?
I think I said at the start of the season that I didn't know what I was going to expect from you guys, because you'd, from the outside in anyway, unexpectedly changed your manager. I didn't expect Danny Cowley to go. I think a lot of fans didn't either. The fact that you did, and you brought in someone who's like, from the outside point of view, like, okay, like with the team you've got, losing Carl and Grant as well, relegation candidates possibly, but you've got some results here and there. I think you've had a couple of stinkers, and you've had a couple of really good results as well. So God knows where you'll be at the end of the season. But I guess you like what Stoke were last season, in the sense that you can pull some results out the bag from absolutely nowhere, and then another team comes along the next week and you fall flat in your face. That's how it appears from results-wise. I must admit, I've not been keeping an eye on performances. There's still some names in there. Like, I know that Alec Pritchard is still playing for you. I didn't think that he'd be playing for Huddersfield now. I don't know how he's been doing for you, but you seem to have some good players in there still. I know that I noticed that Bakuna is the guy that scored that 45-yard own goal. Was it last season or the season before?
Yeah, yes, I remember.
That was funny. So I hope hope that he plays. Maybe you guys hope he plays as well. Maybe he's been doing good, but oh yeah, that was good. Anyway, sorry. To be honest, as you say, I don't know what to expect from Huddersfield, but I bet that's just as exciting for you guys as it is for the rest of us in our teams as well. Yeah,
I think you've hit the nail on the head there. Very inconsistent, but a lot better football. So yeah, I think you've got it pretty spot on, to be fair. And the final question, Ben, just so I can clip this if you're wrong, and we win, or if we can just bury it if you are correct. But score prediction. What do you see the score prediction for this game being?
If you're going to clip this, I may as well go 8-9, hadn't I? Let's see. Like I say, Stoke have been flying. Sort of under the radar, but they have been flying. I'm going to go with a 3-1 Stoke, I think. Maybe that was different to what I predicted before. I don't know. I can't remember. But I'm feeling good about Stoke at the moment. I'm going to go for 3-1.
No, I think that's what you said. So, consistent, like it.
Consistent positivity. I love it.
That's great. I mean, I'm feeling positive talking to you. But, hopefully, well, all the best for the season anyway, Ben. And good luck for the rest of the season. Obviously not on Saturday.
Obviously. No, it'd be nice to see you guys back in the stadium soon as well.
Yeah, definitely. It's always a good away day, Stoke. So, and likewise, you always bring the noise when you come to the John Smiths. But cheers so much, Ben. Thanks for coming on.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so that's our opposition view of the game. So thanks for organising that, Brady. Ben's had his say. And now it's time to have ours with, the predictions for the game and maybe a lineup of how you go. So I'll start with you, Chris, because I went Brady last time. How do you see Town sort of lining up in this game, and what score prediction are you going for?
Lining up's a tricky one. Like you say, there is the possibility of 3 centre-backs. I think it'll depend on... I think the 3 centre-backs thing, often being involved in those decisions in the past, relies on what wing-backs you're going to then play. Obviously, Pippa and Toffel are really obvious candidates for wing-backs, not so sure the other right-backs we have as options are. So with that, I think they'll probably stay with the back 4. And other than that, I think it's really anyone's guess for the midfield 3, and certainly, like you said, the striker with Wardy coming back.
There's an odd comment from Carlos Corberán in the press conference where he likens Richard Stearman to Pippa in saying that he can play that role. So I don't know whether that's a precursor to Richard Stearman stepping out at right back.
Potentially, especially with, obviously, like we've said, the direct play that they like. It's another big body. It's another big body for set pieces, and it's another player to win aerial duels. I'm not so sure I see the rest of the likeness, but I'm sure I know Richard Stearman has played there before extensively, and he could definitely do a job defensively. But yeah, in terms of my prediction, no. I think it's going to be low scoring, and I think it's going to be 1-1. That is so boring, isn't it? But
ironically, that's the exact same I've gone for as well. I think Town will revert to a back 3 or back 5, the way you want to see it. The reason for doing so, I think Fletcher, or I think it just depends how they see Nick Powell playing, and Carlos Corberán said many times that he likes to have that extra man in defence. If the opposition play 2, he'll play 3 at the back. If they play 1, they'll play 2. I think Powell might sit higher, and like you say, he's not one to drop deep. We had a look at the heat maps, or I had a look at the heat maps earlier, where he tends to drift, and he tends to drift into that sort of inside left space, which will be awkward. And I think if Dehaney's coming in for Pieper, I think that's going to be an awkward position to cope for D'Amico, especially if he's having to attack and then look after the winger and Powell dropping onto him as well. I think that could be a lot of work for him. So I would think that maybe they'll go to the back 3 of Stearman, Schindler, and Naby Sarr, and then Dehaney can concentrate on his right wing back role, and Toffolo on the left. And then whether they go 3-4-3 like they did against Bristol City, I think they'll probably go 3-5-2 in this one, and therefore try and catch the counter a little bit. And I would imagine that Hogg and Lewis O'Brien are pretty much nailed on if they're fit to start. And then the last decision really is whether it's coming to 2 Dutch players here, and look what I've done. But I'm coming up to Eiting or Bakuna. So that's the decision on whether they play. And then up front is either Campbell, Koroman and Benza. It's 2 from 3. And my prediction's 1-1 as well. I think first goal is very important. If they score first, I think they win the game. If we score first, I think we get something from it. So, Brady?
Yeah, as I said, lads, I've also got for a 1-1, and I agree with you, Matt. I think it's who scores first. To be honest, I think if we get an early goal, again, if it's something similar to Swansea, where we get a goal, maybe even against the run play, although I don't think that'll be the case for this game. But if we get an early goal, I could maybe see us, getting another one, and if they're pushing forward and trying to get an equaliser. But I think we probably will play 3-5-2. I think we kind of all agree on the pod here that Pippa being out is a bit of a miss, and we're not sure what Dehaney's going to be like, but the signs suggest he might not be as good. But again, Corberán has a reputation for working with players who've not been so good and really improving them. So I'd be interested to see if we do play a 3-5-2 how he gets on, because will be interesting. You made me laugh when you were talking about Stearman though, Matt, because I had that flashback to when I think it was the Derby game when he was the furthest person forward, like basically being a wing back. So maybe we could see that.
I have flashbacks to Brentford though, where he gets caught out in that position as well. So I'm a little bit unsure.
Oh, he loves a Cruyff turn to Stearman as well. So maybe he can match Pippa. Pippa for skill. As we kind of touched on, I think we do have pace. I think that's going to be key, and that's why I think the 2 strikers. I'd go with Koroma and Mbenza. The thing is, like you say, Campbell's very street smart. He's played the game for a long time, and I do wonder potentially if we're struggling to create a lot, if maybe we should play Campbell, because he can take those fouls. He can go down at the right moments and win those free kicks. I know set pieces isn't particularly a strong point, but
hey,
I think
Isaac's on the ball these days with those
very
dipping,
true
dipping knuckleball shots there.
Very true. Yeah. So I think that might be key. So, but yeah, I'll probably say I would imagine it might be Koroma and Benza front.
Excellent.
But 1-1.
Excellent. So we've got 3 1-1s as it
We
goes.
can't do that, can we? Surely not.
Say that again.
On the first ever episode, we can't all go for the same score.
It feels like a little setup, doesn't it? So if it's 1-1 now, we can sit here next week and look rather smug, can't we? But if
I'm tempted to change it just to try and put something out there.
I'm bottling it a bit. I think it's a first goal wins kind of game. I just don't know who's going to score first. So I've kind of gone to. I think if we score first, it's more likely to be a draw. And with Stoke starting slowly, I'm kind of edging towards that. But if Stoke score first, I think they win the game. It's.
If we score first, thing like Brady, I think we could exploit them on the counter.
Yeah, I actually think it'll be a win either way, but I can't pick, so I've bottled it.
Say it, right? You say it. Say it.
No.
Go on, I'll change mine then. 2-0 to Town.
2-0 Town.
Oh, nice.
On the record.
Well, Ben thinks it's going to be a 3-1 win for them, as we heard earlier. So
a nice one.
Yeah. Want to know what he's drinking because he's fairly confident.
Good for him. They look decent this time to Stoke. They're one of those funny teams where the last couple of years I've gone, they're top 6 easy, and it's just never happened, has it? They seem to have had an even worse sort of malaise over them, and it's that whole psyche, isn't it, when you get into that losing streak, of shifting that, and it's taken a couple of managers to really sort of shift that. And Gary Rowett's shown, and Nathan Jones have both shown they're decent managers. They went to Stoke, they didn't do well, but they've gone elsewhere and done. Gary Rowett especially has done an excellent job, and it's taken. Michael O'Neill, who's never managed in England before, but internationally he's shown some real quality as Michael O'Neill, and it's taken 3 managerial changes and to get a load of players out to kind of get them back, and they're still 8th, but I do fancy Stoke for the top 6 this year, but I said that the last 2 seasons as well, so we'll see. But I think that's it for this episode, so thank you for joining us on this episode. Let us know in the comments, how you think this game will go, and hopefully we'll be back next week if this wasn't too terrible, and we'll take it from there. Thank you very much.
Oh, what a night. Late in May in 2017, Schindler scored, it was a heaven dream. What a feeling, what a night. Oh, what a night. Wagner singing, we are Premier League. The greatest sight, St. George's Square at sea. What an evening, what a night. Oh, I got a funny feeling when he walks and a fence, and then the commentator yelled, he takes that chance. Oh, what a night. Lost so safe and mesmerizing me. Low charge and flattened all Chelsea. Stamford Bridge, oh, what a night. Oh, I got a funny feeling when he walks and a fence, and then the commentator yelled, he takes that chance.